Okay, ladies. Woo! I am so excited right now. So excited. I have been planning and preparing and putting things together for you for this amazing weekend that we have scheduled together, talking about love and weight loss and really bringing these two ideas together, like seemingly frustrating and annoying weight loss. That's something that you don't really want to have to think about. And then, of course, love, which is the whole point of life and existence, and what makes life worth living is these little moments and these little feelings of connection and love. And how can we bring these two things together? Because for a lot of us, eating, quote, whatever we want is a form of love, is a form of connection. And so how do we kind of separate from the things that aren't working for us anymore and actually begin to create a relationship with the things that do work for us on a mental, physical, emotional level, and really deal with those emotions that come up? So love and weight loss. Yeah. All right. So I do have a beautiful PowerPoint presentation because I think that images can be really helpful and important. So I'm just going to share my screen here real quick. Let's see. Let's make sure that we are getting the right screen for us. And we're going to do, okay, so welcome. It is our Valentine's Day special. Woo, 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 woo. And I'm so excited. Look at this cool little thing I got the other day. I saw it. I think I was at Safeway or something like that, doing some grocery shopping. And I was like, that's perfect. I'm going to have that in the background because love is really what it comes down to. It's what we are all looking for, that feeling of connected, of being wanted and needed and valuable, feeling that we're in the right place at the right time, and taking the time to analyze what is going on and make some adjustments so that we can really feel the love physically, mentally, and emotionally is super important. So welcome. Okay, so let's get into it, ladies. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to be doing three main things here. We're really going to be demystifying motivation. Motivation is one of those things that almost every single person that comes to me, and that I really struggled with for a long time too. And it's I kind of touched on it a little bit already, right? It's like, if we're waiting to take action until we feel like it, then we're always being kind of motivated by something that stimulates that desire. Like the motivation comes from the number on the scale, or the pants not fitting right, or someone making a comment, or the doctor saying, you got to go on medication, or now you're already on medication. Now you're having side effects from it. Like, oftentimes motivation is something that is kind of sparked from the outside, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It just, if that is not enough to keep us, quote, on track towards our goals and towards really feeling well and being consistent with our food, and we're finding ourselves fighting ourselves, then we're going to need something deeper than motivation. So we're really going to demystify motivation and get down into what's really going on. Hashtag my big why, and that will make more sense in just a few minutes. We're also going to learn what it means to really bypass willpower. Again, willpower, motivation and willpower are probably the two things that people get really confused about. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean by willpower is insufficient to really pull us through to where we want to go. So how can we really bypass that? And when we talk about our will, that really is the way that we're thinking. So how do we change the way that we're thinking? Really show me how to do it, Rose. And then we're going to get really clear as well about what the best next steps are. So we are going to be here for, more than a couple of minutes. This is going to be well worth your time, but I really encourage you to grab some water. And I also encourage you to make it maybe a little bit more fun than you would. Like, I got this kind of like fun little pink straw. I've got this like lemon ice cube, which is super fun. Always wanting me staying hydrated to the best of our ability. And that's some tangy. That's some serious little lemon ice cube that I made. We had like 1,000 lemons last year. And so I squeezed them all out and I made them into little ice cubes and I stored them in the freezer. So that's another way to make things fun and make sure that, that we're not wasting stuff, because that doesn't really feel very good either. I also really encourage you to get a pen and paper. No joke. Okay. So like me just talking head, that's not the way that people actually learn. right? I mean, yeah, we can take in information, but how we actually learn something is when there is a change on the inside, when there is a shift from that information into an action or a changed feeling or emotion. And then we actually see that playing out into the world. So I strongly encourage you. This is one of the ways, write a pen to paper. I'm not even joking. Pen to paper. Get yourself a pen and paper. Okay. This is how we activate the subconscious mind when we write things down. It is incorporating all the different aspects of the human brain, conscious and subconscious. It helps get down from the analyzing, thinking part into the actual feeling, doing part, and it connects the two. I strongly recommend that you don't just let me be a talking head. Grab a pen and a paper, come all the way in, sit all the way down, do the work. This is part of it. Okay, so there's my spiel about staying hydrated, about making it fun, and grabbing a pen and paper. This is for you, right? I am going to share with you some things that I have done and that I have found are successful for myself and my clients. And if you take advantage of that, that is going to be all the better for you. Okay, so today, just to give you an idea, we are going to, today you're going to walk away, you're going to be inspired, right? We're going to get down into what that really means. You're going to have a new perspective and you're going to know exactly what to do next, right? There is no magic in the mystery when it comes to actually when you have decided that you want something and you're willing to do whatever it takes because you're not really sure to go in the direction of what it is that you want. Clarity is your friend. Being fuzzy, waiting till you kind of feel like it, just kind of having a vague idea is nice in the beginning as you're kind of forming what it is that you want. But once you've made a decision that where you are is unacceptable and you want to be somewhere else, you want to go in a direction of something else, then clarity is our friend. So we're going to get really clear on what that is for you today. So I am going to give you a little bit of background. Some of you may know me already and be very familiar with who this person is that is speaking to you and barking orders about getting water and pen and paper. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background of myself. My name is Rose Stein. Hello. I'm so glad that you are here. One of the most important things to me in my life is my son. This is James. This was taken a few years ago when we were, I think we were in Hawaii at that time. Oh my God, look at you, so cute, my little nugget. So through the course of time, I have gotten my master's degree in health education, specializing in nutrition. That came from a deep desire to know what the heck is going on, not only with my clients, but with myself, right? I really was feeling like there was some disconnect because there was so much work that I did on myself mentally and emotionally and spiritually and, self-helpy and all of that stuff. And when I was doing all that stuff, I felt great. But there was still something weird with my relationship with food and my body image. And then when I would kind of focus just on my food and weight loss and, dieting and that kind of stuff, it felt like there was a disconnect with my mental, emotional health. And like, how do you bring these two together? And I really wanted to know that. So that's why I got that degree in holistic health education, like bringing all these things together. I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist. That's one of the things that I got trained in. I'll tell you a little bit more about that a little bit later. I am a nutrition and health coach. I also have my teaching credential in the state of California for health and nutrition and health sciences. I also started an amazing program called Perfect Fit, which is a 3-month program that brings women through a step-by-step, week-by-week, with live coaching process and program of what does that really mean to, organize our food and have some structure and have some boundaries, but also be flexible around it. What does it really mean? How do we change our thinking and our perception and our perspective? And so obviously it's a bit deeper than just a couple hours on a weekend. So if that's something that interests you, you can schedule a call with me at freecallwithrose.com. How easy is that? Okay, so let's keep going. I do want to give you a little bit of background. So, in my adult years, I definitely struggled with my weight. I've been up and down. I mean, I've lost that same 50 pounds like countless times in my life, but it really all started when I was younger. And I know this is not everybody's story, but this is my story. My mom really struggled with her weight as well. And I know that that is something that a parent or had a parent, right? That dynamic, that relationship of the messages that we were taught when we were children about food and about wasting and about our bodies and those sorts of things. It's pretty common to have that growing up. So my mom, she struggled with that 100 pounds. I mean, she was like 10 and 20 and 50 and then 100, and then it was 10 and 20 and 50 and 100. And there was a time when I was young, and I think I was probably about 8 years old. It was probably just before this picture up here on the left. My mom had gotten her jaw wired shut to lose weight a couple of times, actually. But this one time in particular, we were on vacation as a family, and we were in the hotel room, and we were having a pillow fight. And there was like, pillows going all around. One of the pillows burst open, and like all those little feathers that are inside the pillow went like flying out into the room. And one of the feathers she had breathed it in, and she was in the bathroom, but she had gotten her jaw wired shut, right? Because she was like, she just wanted to stop eating. And she thought if she could physically control like hand to mouth and like couldn't get the food in there, that would help her control her eating, and she could get some peace of mind and freedom from the food. And one of the feathers got caught in there, and she couldn't breathe. And I remember she was in the bathroom, and she was trying to get water in, and she was trying to like unhook the jaw wired thing. And her face was kind of turning different colors. And I remember being so scared. She did survive that, and she is fine. But I remember later on, I asked her like, why? Like, why? Like it was never a secret that she was on a diet or why she did that. But like, as a young child, I finally asked her why, like, why is that so important? Like, you almost died. Like, why is losing weight so important? I mean, she was my mom. I didn't see her body in any way other than like, that's my mom. There was zero judgment as a child. I just didn't get it. And she just looked at me and she's like, well, your father doesn't like overweight women. And I remember still not totally understanding what she was saying, but like trying to piece that together. And it was like, oh, well, what does that mean? Like, how big is too big? And what does that mean, overweight? And what are you supposed to be? And like all of these other questions started swimming in my mind, and I didn't really understand. But obviously I'm watching her, and she's like trying to control the food with this. And then she like almost died. And then my dad, and I'm like, it was like so much in this little brain. And right around that time, maybe it was a couple of weeks later, I was in the kitchen and I was putting some cream cheese on a bagel. It was one of my favorite snacks. And I'm in the kitchen, and my dad, like, I mean, he didn't know any of this conversation had happened. And he's walking by, and he kind of looks in. He's like, oh, honey, don't put so much cream cheese on your bagel. You're going to get fat. And like, just kept walking down the hallway. And it was like, it felt like all of these things finally came together. And it was right around that time that I started to be like aware of my body, and like my body is different than other bodies. And what is my body supposed to look like? And how do you what does love really mean? And can you really not be loved because of this? And like, now it's because of the food. And I just remember like my brain just felt like it was exploding. And I remember running to my room and slamming the door and locking it and just crying. And I was like, oh my God, like I have desire and I want this food, but it's going to make me fat, which makes me unlovable. Now my dad doesn't love me. And I'm just totally distraught and tripping out. And I remember him knocking on the door and going, honey, like, what the hell's wrong? Right? Like, what, are you okay? Like, open the door. And I just like, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And I remember wishing inside that he would just break down the door and come in and hold me and tell me that I was lovable no matter what, and that none of that mattered. But what I said was, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And I was like crying inside, wishing that he would just break down the door and hug me and hold me and tell me it was okay and that I was lovable. And I realized that at that moment, that decision that I made, and of course it was based on circumstances, and, we can go into the blame game and all of that kind of stuff, but I don't really think that's necessary at this point. But at that point, I realized that I made the decision that was what made sense, that what I eat makes me unlovable. And even though I want it, I shouldn't have it because it makes me unlovable. And I got into this like naughty girl, good girl thing in my mind. And you can see in this picture how I'm like tucking back my stomach. Right. And I look back and I just have so much compassion for that little girl who was just confused and didn't know how to ask for help and didn't know how to speak up and didn't know how to allow love in and didn't know how to ask for clarity. And that is something that I took through my life so much. I just assumed that I knew what other people were thinking, that I knew what they meant by things, that my interpretation was the right interpretation, and that it all led back to me being not okay. I'm too much of this. I'm not enough of that. I'm unlovable. And if I could just get thin enough. Well, those are all lies. And it made my life really freaking hard and uncomfortable. And I never knew when it was okay and when it wasn't okay. And so you can see kind of, through the years, I started to gain a little bit more weight. And I had actually, in between this picture and this picture, I'd actually already gone to fat camp and lost about 45, 50 pounds. And this is after I had come back from that and started gaining the weight back again. And so it was a roller coaster. It was a big old roller coaster for a really long time. And through that time, I tried a lot of things, I read a lot of books, I went to a lot of seminars and did a lot of work on so many different levels, and I would lose the weight and it would feel better, but it was like just a little more. Then it was like too much pressure. It was like, screw it. And I would gain all the weight back. And it was just this like around and around and around. And I really thought that just understanding would be enough. And that was part of me getting my master's in health education, specializing in nutrition. I thought that if I just understood nutrition, then I would be able to eat the right things at the right time, right? Like knowledge was going to save me. I just needed to understand what I was doing here. And unfortunately, I realized that knowledge was not quite enough. Right? Knowing that experience happened when I was a kid and knowing that I should eat more broccoli wasn't quite enough to really piece the two together, to really forgive myself for the misguidance that I led myself through, forgiving my mom for not being able to be there, for being a food addict herself, for really struggling and really the way that she taught me through her example was screwed up. Quite frankly, it was very sad and food addictive and up and down. And it was, God bless her. She could only be exactly who she was at that time. So there had to be a forgiveness of her. There had to be a forgiveness of my father. There had to be a really owning that I had spent 30 years of my life in this rigmarole, being upset with them, trying to just be thin enough to be okay in my own mind and in my own body. And so I was stuck in that game around and around and around, always, trying to suck in my stomach and, not understanding. And I was tired all the time. And even then when I would lose all the weight, it was like, it was always about the restriction. And so I would be super thin, but then I'd have lost my period and I was tired all the time. And I would stand up and pass out because I didn't have enough blood pressure in my freaking head. And I was hungry all the time, constantly just trying to be good, judging myself based on what I ate that day. And embarrassed of my body, regardless of my weight. I've been embarrassed at 130 pounds, like the same uncomfortableness that I was at 200 pounds. I don't understand how that works in the human brain, but it is. And it had nothing to do. It has a little bit to do with your clothes and what your actual weight is, but you all know 180 on the way up to 200 is a very different experience than 180 on the way down from 200. Same weight, very different perspective. And so when I learned that I can actually change my own perspective, that I didn't have to wait for outside circumstances, that was really the key. So because otherwise you're just playing the why game, right? Like, why did the chicken cross the road? why am I doing this? And it's like, oftentimes there's this backtracking, which can be very helpful sometimes, but it's not the only way. It's not the only why that really matters. Right. And sometimes we can get lost. That's right. That's what happened. Oh, he said that. This is what happened when I was a kid. Oh, and then when I was 12, and then he did that. And then this inappropriate relationship here, and this person said that. And there's all these reasons why we end up where we are at, which are valid, which are true, which do need some attention and some love. But oftentimes we can end up getting stuck in this, why did this happen? So when we're thinking about our behaviors and our symptoms, right, this is like what we're actually seeing. It's like, oh, it's the food, it's the weight, right? It's my binging, it's my snacking, it's my whatever it is, right? But underneath, what really is going on is there's memories, there's emotions, there's meaning that we are giving these behaviors and these symptoms, these experiences of our life. And then we evaluate them based upon our previous experience. And then we just end up staying stuck in the past instead of being able to really envision and make changes, because change is freaking scary. Like, if we're not going to base our experience of tomorrow upon all the things that happened in the past, there's a weird transition time, right? Like, you can't take with you all of the things of the past and be all of who you want to be in the future. There has to be a little letting go. There has to be a little room that is made for something new, a new experience, a new feeling, a new thought, a new perspective. So just curious, and maybe you want to pop in the chat or even just unmute yourself if you want to. Just curious, your thoughts, feelings, judgments when you see these sorts of pictures. Or just ponder to yourself, maybe when you just want to like jot them down. Not tiny people working out, doing their thing. Maybe there's some other feelings or some other thoughts or perceptions or judgments and evaluation. I think there's a little pregnant lady in the back. So cute. Little belly. All right, wait, here we go. Okay. Yeah. All right. What about this one here? Right? Look at very 50s. Everyone's smiling, all the women in the kitchen baking the cake. You know, that's a very different feel. But what about this one here? Right? What were some of the messages that you got about yourself, your self-worth, about food? Right? Memories of the past. And oftentimes we remember the ones that are connected with big emotions. This totally reminds me of me when I was a kid, this little girl, just like, oh, and I remember the feelings inside because I carried them with me. And sometimes they're still there. This like, I didn't get what I need. Like, I didn't get enough. Like, this is not fair, right? Like, my internal world and my external world are not matching up. You don't get it. So what happens is we end up having an internal conflict, right? There is this controller part of ourselves that is very logical. It's very linear. It likes to make sense of things. It likes to have order. This is really positive underlying intention, good for safety. Now, especially if you grew up in a home that was kind of funky and maybe it was unsafe either to be yourself or to speak your truth or to have, big feelings and emotions. If you grew up in an environment like that, oftentimes your controller can be very dominant, right? Like you really need to create a safe place for yourself. And on the flip side, and we pretty much all have this as well, we have what's called the indulger, which is like the opposite of that, which is the release of that, right? The indulger is oftentimes pretty intuitive, really into feelings and emotions, really likes to have a sense of freedom, a sense of carefree. This is the part of ourselves that's like, who cares? You only live once, eat the freaking cake. And the controller's like, but you're on medication and you don't feel good. And then, you have been known to not have one piece of cake. You got to eat the whole cake, or you end up going and getting stuff, on the way home later. The indulger really tends to be more into pleasure. And again, that's a positive underlying intention. Like life that is without safety, not cool. Life without pleasure, not cool, right? But it's when these two are in conflict with each other, when they're trying to outwin each other and own all of the conversation and all of the mental space, that we end up getting into trouble, especially when it comes to our weight, when it comes to our relationship with food, when it comes to our relationship with our body, right? So thinking that we're going to control ourselves into pleasure, right? Or indulge ourselves into feeling safe, we get a little confused there sometimes. So what happens is that we have this underlying belief system. I call it the BS, right? This belief system. And when we are incoherent, right? When we are fighting ourselves, there's a sense of incoherence. It's scattered. There's a lot of chatter. It's uncomfortable. We're not really sure what to do next. We feel annoyed and frustrated. There's like pressure that begins to build and build and build. And we just can't freaking take it at one point. We end up having some kind of an explosion, or having some kind of binge, or having, whether it's an emotional binge, or it's a food binge, or it's, a Netflix binge, or whatever it is. And on the flip side of that, when we are in coherence, when we are really taking the time that we deserve to honor all of the feelings, to hug that little girl who's crying in the corner, and tell her that she's okay, that she's lovable no matter what, that big feelings are okay. And to really listen and ask questions and have a spirit of curiosity, and allow those questions to come forth, and not blame and not shame, and really begin to reparent ourselves. And that's one of the things that I had to learn. I can't really go back in time. I mean, in my imagination, I have done work where I have gone back and I've actually allowed my dad to come in and hug me and hold me and tell me that it was okay, that I was lovable no matter what, right? And that did begin to change the relationship. Even though it didn't really happen in the past, it happened internally in my spirit, because that's what I've been screaming for 30 freaking years, and just trying to hide it. And it's like, oh, well, you're not worth it, and it doesn't matter, and we don't deserve it, and whatever, all of that other lies that I nurtured and told myself for so long. So as I begin to reparent, there's a lot of different phrasing that you can use for that, but I like that part, because I really identify with that particular moment in my life where I could feel the switch coming. And you might have something like that too, a couple of particular moments where you're like, ooh, that was really painful. Ooh, that really solidified my belief structure and system about myself, my safety in the world, other people, what other people are supposed to do and not do, and what I need to be okay. So this opportunity that we have as adults to re-nurture ourselves and begin to build that relationship of trust and safety internally, we begin to build what's called coherence, where our insides and our outsides begin to match, where our thoughts and our feelings are we're no longer running from them. We're no longer trying to change them, but we're also not completely taken over by them. There is a difference, right? There are strategies that I had to learn, and that I'm happy to show you and share with you, of how to really honor that little girl, but also not give in to every whim. right? Because if he would have just come in the room with like a bunch of cupcakes and said, just kidding, eat whatever you want, that wouldn't have been very helpful either, right? It was like, I didn't really need the bagel or the cupcake or whatever it was. Like, I needed to know that I was okay. I needed to know that I was safe and that I was lovable and loved no matter what. Okay, so again, kind of with this iceberg analogy, this is a good visual. We are really getting into motivation now, and the top 10 motivation killers. Now, these are behaviors and symptoms that are on the surface, right? We find ourselves, binging or being obsessed with our body or being obsessed with food or, dieting and having all kinds of mental head trips about it. So this is what I have found is really one of the problems. Okay, it's problem avoidance, right? It's like, I don't want to look at it. It's really not that big of a deal. Who really cares? We have this all or nothing thinking, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm going on a diet. So like, might as well, eat all the cake and the cookies now. I'm going to go to my favorite restaurant. I'm going to do all the things, right? It's like, I'm either on it or I'm off it. Like that kind of thinking kills motivation. This on or off, this idea of perfectionism where it's like, oh my God, if I have one French fry, now screw it. I'm going to have to start again on Monday or on the 1st or screw it until New Year's or whatever. This kind of thinking is the kind of thinking that kills motivation. This idea, and again, you notice how we keep going back to our thinking and how important the thoughts are. This doesn't count or it doesn't matter, right? I can't tell you how many times I did that. I remember one time it was Thanksgiving and there was this, I think it was like a pecan pie. And I had like no one else wanted the pecan pie. I was like, I don't even like it. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's the best. So I had like one little sliver. I'm like, one little sliver doesn't, it doesn't matter. Then I'm like, having conversation, watching TV. I come back, I have like, one little, it's a really small piece. So I didn't even count it in my brain as mattering. It was like, it's just a bite. And then like, I didn't even realize that it kept coming back until I finally had the visual, right? Because if it's just in a bag or a box or a carton or over there, or it's, whatever, all of a sudden there was like only one sliver left. And I was like, oh my God, I think I ate a whole pie. Like didn't even notice. So this idea that like, this doesn't matter, this doesn't count, we kind of get ourselves into trouble because then we look back and we go, I've been so good. Why haven't I lost weight? Or like, why do I still feel like crap? Or like, this thing isn't working. When really there might've been some little things here and there that we said didn't matter that actually do. There is this constant people pleasing that comes up for a lot of us. Right. And we can really see this come up. And let me know if you relate to any of these, ladies, if you're like, oh, yeah, I think I have a little bit of that. I think I have a little bit of not wanting to be the odd one out. I don't want to be the one who doesn't eat the cupcakes. I don't want to be the one who says no to this or yes to that, or has to ask the waiter if there's, weird ingredients that don't work for my body in certain foods, or if they can do something special for me, right? It's like, I want everyone else to like be okay. I don't want to make any waves. Like, I'm going to do everything for you and discount myself. There are sometimes soft boundaries, and again, it's not that we want to be super hard about everything and like, this is it. I'm going to go eat steamed broccoli in the corner by myself. But we can really kill our motivation if we're not clear with ourselves and we have soft boundaries. Negative self-talk, the chitta-chatta, self-shaming, downplaying pain. Right? These are motivation killers that end up with if our initial turn to is to soothe and comfort with food, then these are some things that we might want to take a look at. And devaluing small steps. Right? And that's a big one for us too. And you can see that in the way that we accept compliments or not. Right? If somebody says like, hey, you look great today, it's like, oh, well, it's good lighting. I actually did that the other day. I thought, the lighting was good. It's like, no, I'm actually giving you a compliment, or like, hey, I really appreciated this. Oh, well, I didn't do it all. So-and-so did. right? And sometimes we can see, like, sometimes the appropriate response is just a thank you. Sometimes the appropriate response is focusing on the things that we are doing right. So this idea that we will only do what we feel like doing, and the body is the subconscious mind where feelings are stored. So it totally makes sense that if we keep shoving things into our body, right, with our eating, drinking, thinking, and doing, right, and then waiting to feel some kind of inspiration to do something that actually works for us, it can be a little confusing for the body. So this is where having your pen and paper is going to be really important. So make sure that you have your pen and paper. Make sure you're drinking water, staying hydrated. As we move into motivation, realizing the motivation killers, and acknowledging that outside stimulus is not sufficient to bring us to our goal, we've got to do some work. We got to go a little bit deeper. We got to dig down into, not why is this happening to me? Why do I have to be the one that has to get help with my food? Why, like that kind of blame shame game, and really get into what is your big why? Because your subconscious mind works in images, feelings, emotions, memories. And when there is stress, which I'm sorry, life is stressful. If you think you don't have any stress, right? And it's not just like necessarily bad stress, it's like distractions, right? So once we get distracted, once we get stressed, and it's the same thing like the other day, I was in deep conversation with my son and I was driving him to school, but all of a sudden I ended up at his basketball game. Or like where he practices basketball, because I was distracted. It wasn't necessarily a bad stress. It was just your brain can only handle so much input at a time, right? And when you get distracted and or stressed, you will go into your subconscious programming. It is the way the brain is supposed to work. We don't have to have a judgment about it. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's simply the way that it is. So when we're working with our subconscious mind and the habits and patterns that we have in place, just like I told you, my habit and pattern was to blame myself and go and hide, right? And shove everybody else away, leave me alone, and then wonder why they weren't there and be sad and then go eat in the corner. That was my subconscious habit. So that came up again and again and again and again every time that I was distracted or there was stressful things going on in my life. Right. And so what we want to do is we want to begin to change, to transform, to inspire ourselves instead of motivate ourselves, to allow the light that shines deep inside to become bright and brilliant and wonderful, to have something to move towards instead of something that we're going away from. I mean, fear is a great motivator, but it only motivates for so long, right? Frustration, anger, shame, guilt, like all of those sorts of feelings. Yeah, they might motivate us for a minute. We might be able to clean up our food for a couple of days or even a couple of weeks or lose a few pounds, but it ain't sustainable because those feelings don't last. However, when we work with our subconscious mind, and we really get into what are those underlying images, the feelings, the emotions, the memories, what is our why deep down, then we begin to build a solid foundation so that even when life is happening, we have the foundation and the structure and the habit, the automaticity to continue moving forward, even when we're distracted. Okay, so we're going to forget about motivation, right? We don't need to be motivated from the outside. We don't need someone telling us what to do or pulling us, dragging us along. We're going to uncover our inspiration by asking yourself, and this is what you need to write down. Well, I strongly encourage, ask yourself this question: what do you want? What is it? What do you want? Now, I am going to give some suggestions, some examples, but this is for you. This is your work. And this process that I'm sharing with you right now was shared with me by one of my coaches, and he got it from a book that he read many years ago. A psychologist broke down how to actually get from this surface level stuff that is easy to change, right? So typically the first thing is I want to lose weight. That is typically why people come to, a health coach, hypnotherapist, weight loss expert group like this, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I want to lose weight. Like that's what I want. And if you keep it at that surface level, you're staying in the motivation, you're staying in the external stimulus, which if that works for you, awesome. If you found yourself rolling around in a roller coaster up and down the scale all the time and you're freaking frustrated and that just ain't enough, I encourage you to go a bit deeper. Now, so whatever you put as your first thing of what you want, write down, pen to paper, ladies, pen to paper. I strongly encourage you. This is how you access your subconscious mind, not mine, right? This is not for me. This is for you. Why is whatever you wrote down important to you? Okay, so I jotted down, well, and again, oftentimes, like when I was first doing this, I'm like, well, it's obvious, isn't it? The hell do you think I'm here for? Like, I want to lose weight. Okay, why is that important to you? Well, isn't that obvious? I want to feel better, right? Like we think that these things are obvious, but when we write them down, there is a shift that begins to happen. It's the same thing like if you're like writing down a grocery list, right? It's like, well, obviously I need all these things. I'm going to remember when I get there. You get there, you don't remember. You write it down. Even if you forget your list, you often remember what was on the list because you wrote it down. This is how you access the other parts of your brain and really get it from the surface level down deep. So feel better. Okay. Go a step deeper. Why is that important to you? Why is it important for you to feel better? Or whatever the second thing that you wrote. So I jotted down here, well, I want my clothes to fit better, right? If I feel better, then my clothes will fit better. Okay, go deeper. Why is your clothes feeling better? Or whatever you wrote down for the third thing, why is that important to you? And for me, it was a sense of embarrassment. All right, if I really get down into it and I'm really thinking about being in the world and being seen, having relationships, going places, doing things, right? That self-consciousness of my clothes not fitting right and not wanting to sit in a certain way or not wanting to stand or, judging myself against other people or not wanting to go in the water. I mean, I remember I was living in Australia and a friend of mine asked me to come with them. They were going to go coral reef scuba diving or whatever. And I didn't go. I didn't go because I didn't want to be seen in a swimsuit. Like looking back on that's freaking crazy to me now that I would miss out on an experience like that. Like, I don't know if I'm ever going to go back to Australia, like that was a wonderful experience. And I never went to see the coral reef in Australia because I was embarrassed about my body, and instead I went to the movies and ate candy. Sad. And also really important for me to own that, to see that, to feel that. It is important to me that I do not feel embarrassed about my body. And That's why it's important to me. Okay, go deeper. We're not there yet. You must go deeper. Why is that important to you? Really feeling that. For me, I realized it was draining my energy. That obsession over my own body and my weight and that fear and the uncomfortableness. I mean, it's exhausting. I want more energy. Okay, go deeper. Why is having more energy important to me? Why is the fact that this is draining my energy and I want more energy? Why is that important? Well, at this point in my life, for me, I have a child. And the pain of my childhood, watching my mom struggle and suffer with her weight and with dieting and with self-hatred and blame and shame and all of that stuff, was so painful for me. And everyone's got a different why. So this is just me sharing mine. Yours is probably going to be different. But I really wanted to be present as a mom. And I realized that if I'm distracted with my own self and my own body and my own hatred, that I was not able to be present. So ask yourself why. Whatever you wrote down is important to you. One more, go deeper. Go deeper. Why is that important to you? It's important to me personally because my mom was not present with me and it hurt. You know, it took quite a bit to realize that frustration and disappointment with my mom not being able to give me what I wanted and what looking back, I think that I needed, but also not blaming and shaming her. It's a very fine line, right? Because I know that she did the best that she could. And I know that she struggled with her own stuff and it affected me. And now that I'm an adult, I get an opportunity to take responsibility for those feelings. And I get an opportunity, and it is a choice. We do not have to actually see these things and feel these things and do this kind of work and have the kind of forgiveness that is necessary so that we can move on and not use that blame and shame and guilt and remorse to then pass on those things to the next generation. It is not necessarily an easy road. It's easier than the alternative, right? But it's not necessarily easy. So yeah, acknowledging that hurt. And I wish that it was different and I don't want to pass that on. Right. And so one more, this is the last one. You always want to go seven layers deep. Why is that important to you? I want to do better. I want to do better. Better than my mom could. Right. Well, that is very different than I just want to lose weight. Right. When we get down into it, and every time that I've done this, it's been a little different, quite frankly. Right. So it's not like, oh, I did this and this is the core of the core. Right. Every time I've gone through these 7 questions, it has changed a little bit. Right. There was at one point as I didn't want to be a burden. And another point, it was, a couple of different things. But right now, here today, there is this real settling into this importance for me, right? As the generations go by and all the work that she has done on herself, and really honoring that. Okay. So also, Let's see, giving away, I'll just show you ladies here. I have it just kind of like tucked right here. So I created a journal, right? Because this is one of those things where it was actually, I made it for myself, right? Because I was like, I would love something that was actually like written down, right? Like a workbook, kind of like a journal thing. And so in this little journal, you can go grab this on Amazon if you want to, but also, if you jot down in the group underneath the post in the next couple of days, your big why, I'm going to send this out to the lucky winner. So this is a journal that goes along with my program week to week. It's got the food plan in here. It's got recipes and suggestions, but it also has day by day a couple of little things to jot down in the morning. So there's a little quote, and then there's a place for gratitude. There's a place for what would make today great, a little daily affirmations, and then there's an evening time quote with 3 awesome things that happened today. How could we make today even better? And then a place to jot down your intention for your food. And we're going to talk a lot more about that tomorrow. So it goes along with the 3 months, and it has been so helpful. I think I'm on my 8th one now. So I just pop on Amazon and grab another one too, which is really, really cool. It's helpful little guide here. Again, writing things down, pen to paper. It is really quite powerful and important, just these like little subtle changes. Okay, so this is part of the transformation, right? Taking motivation, which is typically an external thing, and now doing some work and asking yourself some beautiful questions, allowing a spirit of curiosity to move through you of like, what's really underneath here? Why do I really want this? Why is this important to me? And getting really clear, because it doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. This is you. This is just you. This is you time. And really allowing the inspiration to come from the inside. Why is this important to you? Remember, 7 layers deep and jotting it down. And it becomes internal. It becomes a transformation in the deep, subtle energy that lives within you that is always there. So now we're going to talk a little bit about willpower, right? And what willpower really is. And this goes along with our thinking. So our power of our will is our power of our thoughts. So I'm curious, how worthy, how deserving, how capable do you feel when it comes to your body and your health? Your ability to lose the weight and keep it off, to feel really good in your body, to forgive yourself, to feel confident and comfortable, right? Or are you wearing a little bag on your face? I'm ugly and I hate myself. I can't do it. It's not worth it. I always screw up. It's so hard. I'm just this, I'm just that. How worthy, deserving, and capable do you feel when it comes to your body and your health? Right? What are the thoughts that you have around that? What have you been carrying around with you? Because again, this BS, this belief system that we have created, yes, with help from our loved ones when we were children, and of course, society and all of that good stuff. But again, there are choices that we made on what things mean. So there's the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions that have come forth that have created our belief system. Because remember, beliefs are just thoughts, right? That we thought over and over and over again. And then we thought them and we thought them, and then we looked out into the world and we saw evidence to support them. And then that solidified our thinking about it. And then we just kept it going, kept it going, kept it going. So what happens oftentimes, ladies, is that there is a moment where we feel despair, where we feel anger, where we feel like we want to quit, where we say to ourselves, this is stupid, this is ridiculous, this is too hard, whatever the messages are. And there is this thing called cognitive dissonance. And this is why people get upset when their beliefs are challenged. Again, what's a belief? It's just a thought that you thought over and over and over and over and over again. So every time that I say anything or anybody says anything that is inconsistent with your own belief system, meaning if you've been thinking to yourself, I can't do it, it's too hard, it's too expensive, I always fail, whatever, blah, 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 like whatever those thoughts are that you've been repeating and repeating, and then you look back into your history and you go, oh yeah, that belief is valid because of this experience. This experience now is going to define me for the rest of my life. That is a choice that you are making, which means that it is a choice that you can, there is another choice that is available to you. However, when we are challenged, when our thinking and our belief system is challenged, and somebody says, it's actually easy, it's actually simple, you can actually have a different thought, you can have a different experience. I remember being freaking pissed because I had spent 30 solid years of my life believing that it was too hard, that I wasn't worth it, that I couldn't do it, that, even if those weren't those solid thoughts, they were always like underneath. So what happens is there's a mental conflict that occurs when beliefs are contradicted by new information. This conflict activates areas of the brain involved in personal identity and emotional response to threats. Personal identity and emotional response to threats. This is when we start to fight for our limitations. And I see it every single day. But you don't understand, Rose. So-and-so did this. I don't have time. I had to do that. I got a flat tire. I couldn't go to the grocery store. It's so hard. I don't feel like chopping. I'm just tired all the time, whatever. And I get it. I mean, it's not like I haven't done all this. I have done all of this. I have fought for my limitations. I have told you how all the reasons why I'm doing the things that I'm doing, all the reasons why I'm not following through with the things that I said that I wanted to follow through on. Right. And I am now, I'm activating my emotional response to threat. So as soon as someone tells me that I actually can do it, that I am worth it, that it can be simple, that it can be easy, that I'm worth the time and the energy, all of a sudden, somewhere deep inside, my emotional response to threat gets activated, and I am that 8-year-old little girl. I'm running to the room. I've slammed the door. I'm screaming for you to go away, leave me alone. And yet I wish that you would just hug me and tell me that it was okay. And so whatever your emotional response to threat is, acknowledging that that might be what's being triggered and that it's not, it doesn't have to be the only solution, that it can be okay that I'm scared and I feel like a little girl in the room telling you to go away. Doesn't mean that I have to lock the door. Now, the brain's alarms go off when a person feels threatened on a deeply personal and emotional level, causing them to shut down and disregard any rational evidence that contradicts what they previously regarded as truth. And this is why it makes it so freaking hard to actually make a change, to actually love ourselves in a way that is consistent with physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social love, right? When I am distracted in the room, shoving whatever into my face, that's not love, right? That's not love. But if you are contradicting my belief that I am not worth it, it becomes very deep. So what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do, ladies? How are we going to soften this? Right? And part of it is just acknowledging and really working through it and letting those little parts of ourselves be okay and realizing those are not the only parts that exist. Acknowledging that there is chatter, right? And that there are consequences, but what are the positive consequences of making a lasting change and losing weight? Let's brainstorm this for a moment. Can you share with me possibly some positive consequences of making lasting changes and losing weight. And it might not just be the body weight, right? It could be the weight that we store in the mind with all the negative thinking. It could be the weight of taking care of everyone else on our shoulders. It could be the weight of past hurts on our heart. And it could be some extra fat stored in our fat cells on our body, right? Like weight loss comes in many forms, and losing one without the others is not really that great, right? Because if you're just running around super skinny, but you're carrying all this weight in your heart and your mind, and it's all this anxiety and stress, but you're skinny. Done that a couple times too, and that was also exhausting. All right, so what are some positive consequences? Having one less thing to fuss over. Life is too short. Yeah, I like that. Less fuss. Perfect. Anything else? Let's think of some other positive consequences of making lasting changes. Yeah, well, I'm thinking just about like my closet, right? Like how, quite frankly, how nice it is to have just a couple of different sizes, right? Not 15 different sizes, trying to figure out which one fits, or having to go shopping again because one of my favorite things didn't fit quite right, or feeling uncomfortable, going out places or not wanting to go places. Just like I was saying, like missing out on incredible adventures because I just don't really feel comfortable. And sometimes it's not even about that. Sometimes it's about the hangover, right? Like that sugar flour binge hangover where you just feel like crap. You don't care and you don't want to go anywhere. And it's just a Netflix day. I mean, God bless us. Netflix days are great, but not if it's because we got a hangover, having less stress-filled visits with the doctor. Oh my God, seriously, not having the doctor be like, well, if you lost some weight, or, well, if you did this a little differently or did that a little differently, or medications, right? Not having to be on a bunch of medications that, or the aches and the pains in the body and the joints. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you. A lot of positive consequences of making lasting changes and releasing the weight, from all the parts. So what about some negative consequences of making lasting changes and losing weight? Right? Because there's often yin yang, right? It's not all positive. That is just the God honest truth, right? Like it's not all positive. Sometimes when we really make a lasting change, what happens is that we get some criticism from the people around us. They feel threatened. Right? Sometimes, jealous friends or people who think that you're now judging them, right? Where it's like, hey, you've made some changes and it's like, well, don't judge me. There's nothing wrong with eating cake. And I'm like, I don't give a shit what you do, like do what you do. I love you. I'm not eating it. Right? So there's criticism, there's rejection, there's sometimes anxiety, in our own self, because it might be the unknown. If you've lived 30, 40, 50 years with a certain way of thinking and dieting and responding to your body and responding to life and stress and changes in a certain way, and now you're doing something new, it is unknown. I mean, I can probably guarantee it's better, but it's still unknown. There's still a little sense of anxiety stepping out into, okay, if I'm not going to respond in the way that I used to, what do I do? Who am I? Actually, I was talking to a girl last night, and for her, it was, her drinking has become out of control, but she is so afraid of quitting drinking. She's like, who am I going to be? How am I going to have fun? How am I going to relax? Like, she just couldn't even fathom a life without alcohol, even though a life with alcohol was causing her so much pain. And I get it. What would I do if I wasn't emotionally eating or having, binges or doing what I want? Like, what if I wasn't doing those things? What if I didn't have that crutch? What if? Right? And there can be a little stress around that. Again, sometimes stress is good, right? If you had no stress at all, then there's no excitement, right? You want to have a little bit of stress, a little bit of unknown. But there can be some stress, there can be some discomfort. It's change. It's different. It's different. That's why I always recommend going slow, baby steps, real baby steps. That's why I created that journal. Like, that's why I created my program. People are like all ready to jump in. All right, what's the diet? What's the exercise program, Rose? And I'm like, whoa, whoa, slow down. We're actually just going to have a couple of sessions, and we're going to do a couple of hypnosis sessions, and we're not going to talk about exercise or food for a few days. And that can be very uncomfortable because we want to jump in and do things to feel better. It's like, well, sometimes just allowing it to be a bit uncomfortable for a little bit, right, is also okay, as part of the baby steps as we move forward. So, the chatter, being a human is complex, ladies. It is complex. We got a lot going on in there. So when our mind is chitter chattering and we're in the anxiety and the stress and the fear of the unknown, quitting something actually feels good, right? Because there's a pressure that builds up. There's expectation. There's the unknown. It's like, And when we quit, we have a sense of relief where it's like, oh, thank God, I don't have to think about or do that anymore. There's a sense of relief when we get a dopamine hit from quitting. It is amazing. Just the same as we do from, the internet and music and video games and food and, all those kinds of things. So, and it can become pretty addictive. Right. So we start something off and we're like gung ho and I'm going to do it. And we feel really good and we're making the change and we're like, yeah. And everybody goes through a phase called the valley of despair. And that is scary and it is uncomfortable because we're doing all the things and we feel worse. And it's like, how is this even possible? And if we do not have the support and the help and the guidance, someone going like, I know, I totally feel, keep going. We're over here. The light is over here. Keep going. And we move up and out of that stage now into informed optimism and success. Then we get that sense of relief and it feels good again. Right. But if we come down to this place and we're all by ourselves, this is why I highly recommend getting some kind of coach or counselor or group or buddy or something outside of your own self. Right. Because if the habit is to quit and go, and then what happens is we go back, though, we do feel better. Right. There is a moment of relief when we quit a diet or quit doing whatever the program is or quit, what I was like, oh, thank God, but then we end up back. We end up back here waiting for the motivation to get inspired to do something different again. And we can kind of get stuck in that stage and it can become very addictive, just like everything else is. We get the tension and then the release and then the tension and then the release. Okay. So we know that the chatter, quitting feels good. We get that dopamine hit. It's easy to repeat. We do the stop, start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Right? Instead of just the continuation and the baby steps and the continuation and going down the road and realizing and just keep refocusing, not starting over. Just like if you were getting in an airplane, right? The airplane it detours a little bit, right? Because the wind or whatever it is, like you don't go back home, you don't restart. That's why anytime any of my clients are like, well, I need to reboot, I need to restart, I'm going to start again. I'm like, do not start again. It's like one of the first things I say in my journal and in my program. We are never starting over again. Okay. We're going to start right now and we're just going to keep going. We're going to course correct. And that's what you do in an airplane too. You take off, you're going to get off course. You course correct, right? Where are we going? Oh yeah. Detour. Okay, where are we going? And we just simply course correct. It is a subtle difference in the way that we think, profound enough to begin to create a new belief if we repeat it over and over and find evidence in the world to support that new belief. Oh, that's right. I'm just course correcting. It's okay. I'm okay. Right? Giving that little girl a big hug. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. You are safe. It's okay to have these big feelings, grounding yourself, even like with literally hands to your chest, a hug for the self. It's okay. We're just going to keep going. Or we could just do the same old and say, well, I tried. It didn't work out. That wasn't for me. I couldn't do it. It's too hard. That was crazy. That person, right? That was too restrictive, whatever the reason is. But then we just end up reinforcing hopelessness, right? And frustration. And that ends up being hard to trust ourselves, right? We keep going back and starting over. So Jim Rohn says, we must all suffer from one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is discipline weighs ounces while regret weighs tons. So one of my mentors who taught me hypnotherapy and really absolutely changed my life again, because he taught me how to think differently, which over time began to transform my beliefs, which in time began to transform my automatic behaviors and responses to life. And he says, Rose, hypnosis, the phrase hypnosis and people are, can I be hypnotized or I can't be hypnotized is the same as like, oh, I just can't do meditation. It's like, well, we're just thinking of it in a twisted way, perhaps. And he said, we're not trying to get anyone into hypnosis. Right? You go in and out of hypnosis every time you wake up in the morning and every time you go to sleep at night. You're in a state of hypnosis every time you have an automatic response to something and later you go, yikes, why did I do that? You're in a state of hypnosis every time you drive somewhere and you go into autopilot and you miss your exit, right? That's like your body's doing something and your mind is doing something else, right? That is a state of hypnosis. We're not trying to get anyone into hypnosis. That's a natural state. What we're doing is we're helping them break free of the hypnosis that they are already in, right? This framework, this belief system that it's too hard or that I can't do it or that, whatever box that you've put yourself in, getting out of that box. And even Einstein said, without changing our patterns of thought, we will not be able to solve the problems that we created with those current patterns of thought. Right. So again, just going on a diet, although it's nice, although it might work to lose weight, just, whatever the diet is, whether it's, you could do a million different things. They all work if you actually do them. Right. But without changing your thinking, you just create the same patterns and the same experience all over again. So baby steps. Right. There's this story of me, really wanting to take a walk every single day. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. It was 10 steps to grab my shoes. And it was too much work. And finally, I had the realization that what if I just put my shoes by the door instead of 10 feet over there in the closet, right? So that when I see it, it's like, boom, I'm reminded. And I put my shoes by the door. And it was like, boom. I also had, put socks on my sports bra because there was other things that I needed as well to go for a walk every day. And it was like, boom, right out the door. So we begin to think about our environment and what our environment is stimulating for us and what are the blockers, the little things. It's often not huge things. It's often little things like actually having a glass of water with a fun pink little straw in it right there next to my computer so that I remember to drink it. If I have to get up and go get the glass of water every time I wanted to sip, I would not do it. Girl, I would not. Okay, so we call this shoes by the door, right? Like create an environment where you will be stimulated to do the things that work for you. Like my journal. Right? I have a food journal in my bedroom. I have my journal that you can get one too, on my bedside so that I remember to do it every morning and every night. I also have a food journal because sometimes it's too much to walk upstairs to see what I had committed, but I have a food journal downstairs as well to remind me. So little things in your environment that remind you of the things that are important to you, that remind you of your big why. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through a little guided meditation, a little visualization. This process is called unlimited reality. Now, when it comes to hypnosis or guided imagery, visualizations, you don't necessarily need to believe anything. This is not about having to understand it and know it ahead of time. This is really about being willing to suspend disbelief long enough to receive the benefits. It's very similar to prayer and meditation, where we don't need to figure it all out, right? That's why we go into prayer and meditation. We go into gratitude. We get into the conversation and the gratitude about the things that we have. I'm really getting into allowing ourselves to receive the love that is already there. It's really about unraveling and unblocking, because you are love. Essentially, you are love. You have a spark of brilliant white light love that has been with you since the moment that you were born, is with you your entire life. And what happens is that there's just, dramas and traumas and ideas and beliefs and life and stuff that kind of piles on top of it. And what we do with visualizations and relaxation and prayer and meditations, we begin to unravel a lot of that stuff. It's like a coming home. It's an allowing of more of who you are to come forward and shine a little bit brighter. So again, hypnosis is not about me doing anything to you. It's not about some hooji-wooji magic thing. It's really about giving yourself an opportunity to shine your own light a little bit brighter. So unlimited reality technique is about learning the way that we learned when we were children. Now, regardless if I would have had that conversation with my mom when I was 8 years old and asked her why she got her jaw wired shut, regardless if I ever had that conversation with her, her behavior, she modeled for me what it was like to feel very uncomfortable in your own body, to go up and down with weight, regardless of what was actually said. So I learned by her modeling. That's the way that human beings learn. As we grow older and we begin to take ownership of our own mind, we begin to realize how the brain works and how we actually learn. We can pick and choose the people that we model. We can pick and choose the people that we learn from. As a child, I was not able to do that. I only could have the people that were around me. And obviously the people that were living in my house were the most influential, whether they wanted to be or not. And again, as an adult, we have an opportunity and an ability to learn. So I'm going to encourage you to set down the pen and the paper now. I'm going to encourage you to close the door, take a couple moments to relax. It's going to be nice for you to have some time to close your eyes and go along with this visualization and this relaxation session. Okay. So go ahead now and take a deep breath in. And let that breath out with a sigh. And focus your attention now on someone that you know that has skills, abilities, and resources that you'd like to have. Just allowing your eyes to close and giving yourself this place, this space, and this time to focus your attention on learning. Now, as you think of someone that has a skill that you would like to have, especially possibly the skills and the resources and the ability to say no to food between meals, when you think of this person, I want you to imagine them at a distance, as if you're watching them from a distance move through the amount of their day. Imagine from a distance that you're watching them move through the amount of their day, and they're moving through activities and encounters. People are offering them food and offering them inappropriate drinks, and they simply say, "No thanks." It's natural. It's normal, and they expect it. Others expect them to act and treat them that way. But even though they are offering, because that's what they do, it's the right thing for them to do, to offer. And it's the right thing for you to do, to say no. Now, as you move through the experience, notice one of their days when they've eaten the right foods at the right time in the right sequence for their body. Most importantly, I want you to notice from a distance how they stop eating when they're full. How natural it is for them to leave food on their plate. And when you've watched them through the amount of their day, mentally taking all the time you need, just like you're watching a movie about someone who has the behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs that you're acquiring, just take in a deep breath and allow yourself to relax even deeper. Breathing in deeply and breathing out completely. Now imagine that you could step back and start that day over again. But this time, imagine the possibility of stepping into their body. Imagine what it would be like if you could see through their eyes, hear with their ears, sense and feel with their body. Understand that by walking in their shoes, how it is that they do what they do. Imagine just for a moment that you could listen to their internal dialogue, that you could hear them communicate with themselves about food. You listen to what people are saying, and most importantly, listen to their positive, dynamic, internal dialogue. Notice how natural it is for them to look down at their body and honor and love and appreciate their body. And when you've moved through that same day now, differently, by seeing through their eyes, hearing through their ears, and sensing and feeling what their body is sensing and feeling, so that you can acquire those skills in a new way. Just take in a deep breath and let it be. That's right. Now imagine that you could bring all of those skills and abilities back into your body right here and right now. That those skills, those abilities, those resources could stretch out into your body right here. That you could feel them surging from your heartbeat all the way down to the bottom of your feet. You could feel them moving to the tips of your fingers. You could feel them integrating through the legs and arms. You could feel them in your own unique way, integrating into your lifestyle. Now imagine 3 places where you would benefit from these new behaviors, these new attitudes, and these beliefs in the next week. As you eat the right foods at the right time in the right sequence for your body, and it's easy, natural, and a matter of fact for you. Just think about those places that you'd like to have those skills and abilities integrated into your life, and take a deep breath. And let it be so. Now, as you think of that week again, think of ways that you can make the next week even more fun and easy. Let a lightness fill your mind. Let a brightness fill your body. Imagine, like a Hollywood producer, that you could place greater joy, greater happiness, greater harmony by placing your favorite music in the background. As if someone has taken your life and made a script for health, harmony, love, and vitality. And when you've made it through the day in this way, through the week, just take another deep breath and let it be so. Step into the future. Imagine that you're there a week from today and you've done it. One more week and you've released the weight from your mind, lifted it from your shoulders, removed it from your heart, and melted it from your body. Notice the joy that your body is experiencing by releasing that weight. That you don't ever have to do that particular one again. It has been released, permanent, natural, and forever. That weight no longer serves or produces results for you, so you converted it into energy. You've released a dynamic, positive attitude. For all energy changes shape and form, and now in your mind, it's changing to a shape and a form which is more productive, more positive, more loving for you. You'll experience this lasting change where your shoulders will roll back, your chin will roll upward. You will feel extremely good for no apparent reason. The days themselves will transform into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into years. Now, it is from here that as you concentrate your attention on my voice, that outside sounds and distractions and influences are perfectly natural. They're perfectly okay. They're doing exactly what they should and need to do, and you are doing exactly what you should and need and choose to do. And it is from here that I want you to imagine your favorite vacation. And just take a little mental trip where you can take care of all the stress and the strain, the confusion once and for all and permanently for today. Just let the stress go by taking a mental vacation where the seconds become hours. And when you've taken all the time that you need on the mental vacation so that upon awakening today, you can be rested, relaxed, revitalized, and renewed, ready to treat people with more love, more respect, more integrity than ever before. Just take in a deep breath and let it be so. Now, with that mental attitude in mind, as you journey deep, deep inside, just notice that if there is any part of you that objects to you utilizing this process known as the unlimited reality, where you can learn from others vicariously, just the way that you did as a child. But this time you get to pick and choose your teachers by choosing people in the world around you that have the skills and abilities and behaviors that you truly want. And you could use these and benefit from them, benefiting from this process by a process of osmosis, where it would simply happen for you without question, without hesitation. Now, if there is any part of you that objects to this, it's perfectly natural. It's perfectly okay. Simply ask that part if there is a way that we could work together. Working together for your ultimate good. So that improvements and positive changes could be made everywhere. Just know that if there is any part of you that objects to this process, that part would be taken deep, deep inside. So deep, in fact, to the very core of your mind, where it would be explained about the new behaviors, your big why, the new attitudes and new beliefs, and how a synergizing effect is happening in your mind. Synergizing, meaning that every part is necessary and needed. That as your body, as a perfectly tuned organism works together, you will release the weight, releasing it from your mind, lifting it from your shoulders, removing it from your heart, and allowing it to dissolve from your body. It is from here that I want you to look into the future. Given the information that you're learning here today, one day at a time, and the continuing training that you will be receiving, allowing the information to move deep, deep inside so that you can release the weight permanently and forever. Just know that if for any reason your unconscious or conscious mind feels that you're not getting what you need, all that you would need to do is to say so, to ask for clarity, to ask for help. And when the appropriate behavior, the appropriate attitude, or the appropriate learned experience would then be given to you without question, without hesitation, it will simply be drawn to you. So that every day and every way you're getting better, better, and better. Greater joy, greater love, greater happiness, first in your mind, and then allowing it to flow freely through your thoughts, and then become a part of your everyday reality. The days and the weeks and the months simply passing by. So that you can receive the benefits that you want today, and they will only improve upon awakening. I say to you now, focus on your breathing. And as you continue breathing in deeply and breathing out completely, you are doing perfectly. And because you've done this process once here, you can continue to do the process deep, deep inside your dreams even, so that upon awakening, spontaneous, natural changes can take place. Positive thoughts, positive influences, positive beliefs are now becoming yours at every level of consciousness. Only accepting that which is positive, productive, loving, and forgiving for you. So the benefits will be multiplied upon awakening. I say to you now, it is time to awaken. Slowly, only as slowly as you can find yourself returning back into the room, solidifying the new experience, learning just like you did when you were a child, and taking new experiences into you to the days and weeks to come. And as you awaken, feeling fine and in perfect health, feeling better than before, as if you just received a relaxing mental vacation. And this is so. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for getting the pen and paper, writing stuff down, presencing while we went through a live hypnosis session together. It was really beautiful for us to come together in this way.